Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cybersecurity Weekly. I'm your host, Fred Cobb, Executive Vice President and CISO at InfoSystems. And I'm happy to have Rob Ashcraft, Senior Cybersecurity Strategist, joining me today. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me on the episode.
Oh, yeah. Very glad you could join us. We really appreciate you lending some time. As the folks that have been tuning in previously are aware, we've been going through a series on the Center for Internet Security, Critical Security Controls, taking those one at a time, sort of hitting some of the cursory points of each control, some of the important points. And we are up to number 10. So we're going to be talking about number 10 today, moving right along through the series. So we'll just start right into it. So number 10 has to do with data backups, thinking about best practices around backups and some of the things to be aware of, certainly from a security perspective. I mean, it goes without saying, Rob, isn't data really the most critical, most important, most valuable asset that most companies have?
Yeah, certainly. So, data is the gold. It's one of the main targets for bad actors that they're going after. And so we know that attacks can corrupt data or encrypt it. They can steal it. So having your data recovery capabilities intact, and as the actual CIS Control 10 talks about the processes and the tools that are used properly for backups for critical information and so backups not just enough, but having it done the correct way, right? Not enough just to have to backups in place, but have a proven methodology for a timely recovery.
Absolutely, that's key. And I like to talk about when we're talking about data, I get back to the old CIA triad: the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of data. And we can kind of work backwards from that. I mean, thinking about making the data available. Think you're in a medical environment, and you have to have patient data at the ready. That data is as you mentioned, your gold. And without that data either being online or have the ability to quickly recover, you can find yourself in a bad way quickly. So you've got medical data, which is a sensitive form of data. You've got information related to, let's say you're a manufacturer, you've got engineering diagrams, or you're a manufacturer of food products, you've got recipes. You've got to maintain the availability of all the information that allows you to conduct your business, wouldn't you say?
Sure. Yeah, and it's not just enough to take the protective measures, and those are some of the things we've talked about in the earlier CIS controls. But you have to have a backup plan, right? Just in case. So security is always about layers. It's always about redundancy. It's always about reducing risk. And so proper backup procedures and having proper tools in place are important. Is an important way to reduce your risk. So from the top, I mean. Looking at the first control is to the sub-control in there is ensuring regular automated backups. So, we recommend scheduling backups on a frequency that reflects the criticality, as you were mentioning, the criticality of the data, whether that's weekly or every 24 hours, or even in some cases hourly backups on a file level. So, these are important things to be considering as having the backups in some type of automated fashion, and that they're working properly.
Yeah, and of course the another component of the CIA triad is the integrity. And a better way to test your backups is to do routine restores. I mean, sometimes that's just a normal course of business in a very busy environment. You may be doing regular file restores just as a matter of business. But I think what we find to be the case is a lot of times the set it and forget it approach is taken, where, hey, our backup's doing its thing. We assume it's doing its thing. Then the big moment comes whenever you need to do some sort of maybe something beyond just a simple file restore, maybe an entire system restore or database restore. And you find that, we've got a problem in our backups. Simply the integrity of the data is not there. It can be a bad day.
Yeah, for sure. And so testing the backups is extremely important. And so, whether you're testing them, and have a separate set of machines set up, or some type of, VM or somewhere where you can load things in and check them. And just like any other, anything else you're doing, you have to practice. Practice makes perfect, right? And so, when it's really needed, it ensures the success of your backups. So we certainly not only encourage regular backups, but testing the backups as a proactive measure.
Yeah, that should be part of your your incident response testing, perhaps, or certainly your disaster recovery testing. You should be doing restores to test the integrity of that system, and you don't necessarily have to wait until one of those annual or semi-annual events, such as an IR test or a DR test. Certainly, be testing the reliability and the integrity of the data via restores. And
we'll be back with the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast after we pause for this special message. Security analysts believe cyber attacks will continue to escalate throughout 2020 and are recommending that every company, regardless of industry or size, place immediate focus on cybersecurity training and the tools that will protect you from these attacks. Did you know that you can book a cybersecurity assessment right now with Fred Cobb's team of cybersecurity engineers at InfoSystems? They will help you discover exactly where you are most vulnerable to a cyber attack and make recommendations on how to strengthen your defense in those areas. This is urgent. It's an issue that affects everyone in our community. Visit the InfoSystems website at www.infosystems.biz to request your cybersecurity assessment. Now back to the podcast.
Another thing too, again, working backwards, back to the C in the CIA triad, the confidentiality of the data that's in those backups. Rob, can you speak to that as far as how to protect that via access control?
Sure. Yeah, so we need to ensure the backups are properly protected. So physical security, that they're in a locked area, if they're also encrypted when they're stored. So data at rest is encrypted, data in transit is encrypted. So we know that that's also very important with our backups. So whether they're on premise or they're on cloud and they're being transported that way, via some type of connection, that all needs to be encrypted. And so these are things that we encourage our people we work with to consider is having these things that not only physically secured but encrypted. I think another key thing is having a backup destination that's not continuously addressable through operating system calls. So this will mitigate the kind of risk of attack like a ransomware, which is going to seek to encrypt or damage the data on all addressable data shares. So if it's separated from that, it protects that. So it's offsite type of or offline type of backups is another way to protect those.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as you mentioned just a moment ago about ransomware, there's different variants of malware ransomware that will actually seek out what appears to be mount points for backups of data, look for backup devices that the ransomware can attack. So not only can it encrypt the information that's in real time on your file shares, but when you think about, well, I'm doing good backups, I should have a quick recovery mechanism in place because of the attack. Then you go to find out that your backups, either the data, I've seen some variants of malware not only encrypt the backup information, but go a step further and actually delete the backup copies. So
wow, yeah.
that can make a really bad day. So again, it's uber important to make sure that you're controlling the access, the confidentiality piece. You are validating the integrity of the information through your restore operations.
Sure.
And
yeah.
the availability. You want to make sure you are doing a very sound or developing and implementing a very sound backup strategy, kind of a combination of fulls, combination of incrementals, differentials, and to your point a moment ago, having that tertiary copy. In other words, you may want to take your backup information and place that in a cloud location or place that in some sort of offsite storage or offline storage.
Removal. Yeah, that's right.
That certainly gives you that extra insurance policy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing is to keep in mind that a data attack has the potential to be catastrophic for an organization. Especially for those who are handling sensitive data like PII, or you mentioned medical records or sensitive information. Encouraging people to think about the data in their systems and consider, the effect it would have, this cascading effect of contamination on a large scale.
Yeah, we've talked about the attacks can certainly damage data or delete data, but we don't think about it as much these days, just because of the modern technology. The mean time between failure of hard drives, or using flash storage, using more resilient to failure type storage. Sometimes that has a tendency to cause people to get a little bit lax on the need for backups. They're thinking, well, I've got this ironclad storage subsystem, or the mean time between failures 10 years on the hard drives that I'm putting into my storage subsystem. But stuff still happens, failures still occur, and you want to make sure you're protected in the event of a true hardware failure. I guess one other point I want to make before we close out is replication. For those of you out there that are using some sort of replication technology or process where you're taking in real time my data and I'm copying it off to maybe a DR site, or I'm copying it off and replicating it somewhere where I can, flip that switch, change a couple of IPs, and that becomes my live system. Be aware that if your primary copy comes under attack and something happens where the data is obfuscated, deleted, encrypted, before you can get a hold of that, it's quite possible that your replication copy suffers the same fate. So don't rely on replication alone to protect you. Even though it's a great technology, it's really good for that lowering of your recovery time if things are done properly. So I think we can close this topic out. Rob, I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts around this. It's a very important topic. We see time and time again out in the field where our customers, or customers that we engage with, let's say, sometimes don't have those backups, and it can be just decimating to business, as we've all been witness to. So those of you out there listening, make sure you're doing the right things around your backups, and you'll have a better day if you ever have to rely on them. So any final thoughts, Rob, or we can close this one out?
No, let's close it out, but thanks for having me on the show, and we'll look forward to the next episode.
Absolutely. And for those of you tuning in, we appreciate your patronage and your attendance, and taking time to listen to our podcast, review the podcast, and we'll keep these coming. So thank you again, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.